What a day that was. Final Word Daily. Adam Collins, Jeff Lemon. We're at the SCG. First day, Australia-Pakistan for CBUS Super, celebrating their 40th birthday. cbussuper.com.au. Jeff, sum it up in 30 seconds.
Pakistan were gone early, they were sunk, both openers out for second ball ducks, and they were 96 for 5 when Shah Massoud, the captain, was out, going nowhere, going to lose in 2 days. And then Rizwan said, no, I might smash a few. Made 88, it was pretty good fun. Aga Salman made 53, they still weren't on for a big score. They were 9 for 227. It was Cummins in the middle, it was Stark and Hazelwood off the top. And then Amr Jamal, he just went, you know what, I'm having a good series, I might continue having a good series. They tried to bomb him, they tried the short ball stuff forever, it didn't work. Mir Hamza hung in there. They put on 86 for the last wicket. Almost a record for Australia versus Pakistan for the last wicket. We'll get to that, maybe in the Hall of Fame. But an extraordinary last wicket performance. Really brave, took them on, bombed sixes, smashed Nathan Lyon around. Exciting stuff, 313 all out, and Australia 6 for 9 at the close on 9 for 6.
Yep, sounds good. Don't stop him now. He's having such a good time. He's having a ball. I mean, that was kind of how it felt. So let's start with that partnership, because why wouldn't we? It was borderline crazy brave, right, at the start. Hit on the lid twice. One of those around the neck. It was all a bit ugly, right?
And he got one under the armpit, he got one in the chest. He was trying to tee off a length, kept missing them and getting nailed by Cummins.
And my thinking was, well, I know that he's got the guts to get through a tough interrogation. He did that on morning 3, I think it was, at the MCG last week. I think it was morning 3, where he made 33, batted for 80 odd balls, and played some expansive shots towards the end, but mostly about preservation. And this time he's like, actually, we're 9 down, I'm duty bound to go for it. Given they'd taken 4 for 37 to the short ball to that point, and it all starts with Rizwan's dismissal. First ball they deployed it, and by that I mean 5 out for the short ball. We're very familiar with it now. It's becoming an increasingly big part of Test cricket. Fly slip, deep backward point, and then the trio of fielders on the leg side. Fine leg, deep backward square, deep square, but just in front of, plus a deepish mid-wicket. We've seen this one before. And first ball of that, Rizwan gets out to it. Subsequently, Sajid, Salman and Hassan all have similar dismissals and similar ends. And you're thinking, well, this short ball stuff is working, and it's ugly. And I absolutely get why people are critical of it, because it jars. When you're watching it and you've played a lot of cricket, your instinct is to tail enders, bowl at the poles, knock their stumps out of the ground. But the data and the analytics say if you bowl at their helmet, you're more likely to get them out. But the problem was they couldn't adjust. By the time that he'd gotten himself in, Jamal this is, and by the time that Hamza was batting commendably, he faced over 20 balls to get off the mark. He batted for more than an hour before he got off the mark. And they played that milking the strike game pretty well too. That had lost its potency, and the bowlers were knackered. They were coming back for second and third spells, and we know that bowling short for a sustained period of time takes it out of quicks who've been out there all day, and they weren't able to pivot, or weren't able to pivot quickly enough. They were using Labuschagne, using Travis Head, and by that point, as you say, an 86-run stand for the final wicket. And when he fell for 82, I was surprised. I was certain he was going to bring up 100 before the close.
It was, I was tracking the big partnership, so there have been 6 higher partnerships for Pakistan for the last wicket, and 6 higher partnerships against Australia for the last wicket. So they went past Stokes and Leach towards the end there at Headingley 2019. There was one which was a run higher. I think it was a double Iqbal. It might have been an Asif Iqbal.
Asif Iqbal.
Kasim.
Yeah, Asif Iqbal, he made 100 out here in 1977. Asif Iqbal. No, that was 76 in Adelaide, but 77 is when he made a match-winning 100 out here when Imran Khan took his 12.
Yeah, but I mean, it was. I mean, Ahmed Jamal. I want to start with him because. And I wrote about this on the live over by over stuff today, that a lot of Pakistani players come out here and do not leave with their reputations enhanced. That was my general contention. Now, he comes out of here, he essentially comes out of nowhere to debut. People aren't really expecting him to play in Perth. He plays there, they're getting towed up by Australia's batting. He still takes 6 wickets, 6 for 133, was it?
6 for 111 in the first innings.
Right, 111. Worked hard there. Took a few more in Melbourne, took 2 and 3, I think.
3 in the first dig, I reckon it was,
2 in the second. And more so, impressed me with that 33 that he made in the first innings, where he played the tail enders role. He soaked up the bowling, he didn't play shots, he let himself get hit, he supported the players up the order. And then he took on the other role today, which was I'm the guy who's got the best chance of scoring here, so I'm going to do that. To rattle off 80, from the position that he was in, and from his position in the order, and from a position where Pakistan's bottom 4 made naught between them in Melbourne.
Yes.
I mean, Mir Hamza got out first ball in Melbourne, gloved one up in the air and was gone. It was, I don't know, it felt hopeless at the point where they were, even at 7 down, it was like this will run through quickly. And it didn't, because he wouldn't let it happen. And there was a bit of luck, and there was some balls that didn't carry, some hook shots that didn't carry to the deep and whatever it was. And he there's some luck involved in hitting the gaps when you've got boundary riders out. But he didn't take on every ball. He didn't try to Hassan Ali it and just smash everything in that sort of way. He was selective. He played out the first 3 or 4 balls of each over. He started attacking around the 4th or the 5th. The way that he picked off Nathan Lyon over mid-wicket, a couple of those shots, huge, clean, sweetly out of the middle, and then there were those really rasping straight drives back past the bowler as well. He took on the faster stuff too. He just wasn't cowed, and he got bashed up, and he got hit, and he was still. I mean, I'm so impressed. I'm welling up.
Yeah, I mean, the reputation enhanced. I think Brett and I was doing that on commentary as well. Which players have left with their reputations enhanced?
Yeah,
front of the queue is Amir Jamal. He was a depth bowler. He was the guy playing because they didn't have the configuration they wanted on this trip. That they had Harris Ralph, who declined the chance to tour. That Naseem Shah's not fit to play cricket at the moment. It just didn't break the way they wished, and thus they're playing this guy who we were told was going to struggle to bowl quickly enough to be a threat. Well, he's actually turned out to be their fastest bowler. He's improved with pace as you've gone on. He's bowled some fantastic deliveries, and this is not the first time he's played an important innings through the course of the series. And look, the other part of this is that in a way he was kind of taking on every ball at the start, and it was a little bit ramshackle. It looked loose. But then he found his rhythm with it, and I think that's the key thing here. He worked out a method and applied it. Just want to offer a little bit of perspective on the short ball stuff, because I can already see the way the commentary is going to trend on this. We were picking it up on our text line, on social media and all the rest of it. I touched on it already. Why don't you bowl at the stumps when you've got the tail in? They took 5 for 18 exclusively with short balls at the MCG last week, and 4 for 37 to this point where that partnership started today. I agree, it's not pretty. We've talked about it so many times in 2023. The Lord's days, or multiple days of this at Lord's, the bouncer barrage, even when the bowling isn't quick, for whatever reason, and I don't know why it is, lower order players haven't yet worked out that the best method is exhausting bowlers and letting stuff go. By definition, that's got to be the best way of doing it if you can. If you've got a defence that's strong enough, you've got to have a good enough tail. If it's not hitting
your stumps, then you can get out of the way of it.
For the most part, it's not easy, but these are professional cricketers. If they made it to the top level, in all probability, they've faced pretty quick short bowling in domestic cricket and so on. So it's not like, I know in England it was kind of like 3 bottles of red, 1 in the morning, people tweeting away about how these guys are useless and all the rest of it. It's not that. But I do agree that there wasn't the pivot today. It didn't ultimately work today, but it worked for a decent slab of time. Both things can be true at the same time. It's not black and white, but on the balance of what they're trying to do in Test cricket across the world, it's not just Australia who've arrived at this conclusion. They all do it. And there's a reason they all do it, is because more often than not, it is effective. So I just think it's worth just remembering that this isn't some, let's knock their blocks off sort of flex. It's they know their numbers tell them that it works. Remember England did it with Jasprit Bumrah a couple of years ago at Edgbaston, and Bumrah hits 35 off and over or whatever it is, and England copped absolute pelters, and England are like, no. Like, look, we do this every game, and I feel like we've seen this one before.
But we have seen it, and what we did see during the Ashes, and the point that I think, the problem with it is that teams are not quick enough to shift when it stops working.
When it stops working,
because it does stop working. And it can be a shock and awe thing. It can smash over a team like it did at the end in Melbourne. But that's also a 4th day pitch, which is more erratic. It's more up and down in bounce. It's not that true kind of bounce. And it can shock you for a few overs. But if you're Jamal and you're out there for more than a few overs, and you've got time to start assessing the bounce and figuring out which ones you want to take on and which ones are in your spot and which ones aren't, then eventually, it's like any net session, right? If you face the bowling machine and you set it to give you one type of delivery, if you're like, I want it just back with the length outside off stump, then eventually you start to be able to punch them on the up through the guts. Whereas if you try that in your first 10 balls, you nick them and you get out. I mean, this seems like basic cricket stuff to me. If you keep getting the same kind of bowling, then you get better prepared to take it on. And that's what we saw happen. And we've seen this Australian team look like they run out of ideas at that point, and they just keep going. And it did happen at times in England. It did happen when they kept on going with it and the scoring got out of hand, and they weren't able to then shift it back, or they weren't willing to shift it back. And I don't know which of them it is, but that's how it looked today. That at the point where they needed to change tack, they couldn't. They were too far in. Jamal was well set. Hamza was confident, and on they went. So there is a point where it is a failing, I think, in the way that they use it. Not that they use it in the first place, but that they keep using it.
Yeah, spot on. I think there's just a tweak required sort of strategically, like an acceptance that if it's working, roll with it until the point where it's not, and then there is a way of rowing it back. It's not you can, and they did slow the play down. They did have Lyon and Labuschagne bowling in tandem at one point with a view to doing that. Then they went back to it again. I guess Cummins hadn't had a crack by that point. Cummins took himself off when he had 5 for 57. Didn't return until the partnership was, I don't know, 60 or 70 or something like that. Did take 5 wickets, 3 before lunch. The ball that he bowled to get Babar Azam was an absolute beauty. This pitch was, the bounce was considerably lower than Melbourne and Perth. And after an hour, we're like, gee, they've stuffed up here. Shafiq rash shot to get out second ball.
Horrible shot. Just,
and unfortunately, Sane edges one in the second over on Taboo, second ball blob. Perhaps not the footwork you want, but I'm willing to give him a lead.
Yeah, I thought
good bit of bowling.
Same's dismissal was an understandable opener's dismissal.
Fine bowling.
Shafiq's was an ugly one.
New ball dismissal for Same at the first time of asking. Right, that's just one of those things that he'll get plenty of opportunities, I suspect, based on the pedigree he's shown already in first class and T20 cricket. But at that point, Babar Azam looked $1 million for about half an hour. Played some stunning cover drives, and that rhythm that we've been dying to see from Babar found a little bit in the second innings at Melbourne. Absolutely was rusted on today, I felt, for a big score. And then Cummins, who bowls a number of balls that move away, hitting the seam in that channel outside the off stump, goes in with that fuller in swinger, which has become a big part of his repertoire in the last couple of years, Jeff, that when Cummins needs to, he can briefly become a swing bowler. We don't think of Cummins as a genuine swing bowler, but he has got that weapon, and he deployed it perfectly, blew his pad off, and it took a review. They did go upstairs for it, but it was hitting leg stump halfway up, and when Babar fell, then Shaquille is desperately out of Nick's Cummins before lunch. That's Cummins' second one, I think. 4 for 75. Still never made a duck, that's true. But
we're clinging on to that.
He did feel like he's diminishing returns, Shaquille. He needs this series to end, is my sense. Then there's the Rizwan show. And before lunch, a little bit like Jamal in a way, he was taking on all sorts. He was chancing his hand. He was playing shots that wouldn't be out of place in a T20 international. The one where he hoiked over deep backwards square for 6 out of nowhere. Felt like he was not long for this world. But
same sort of shot he played in Melbourne, where he stepped across the stumps and flipped it over deep back. A very one-day shot.
That's it. But they want to change the sort of cricket they're playing. Rizwan's going to have to be a change in the side. There's going to have to be an acceptance that Rizwan is going to play innings that desperately frustrate Pakistani fans. But days like today, when he does enjoy a little bit of luck along the way, he can run the board up. They scored at 5.2 runs and over in the middle session, and it's a shame they lost 2 wickets just before the end of it, because it did have that sense that, I know Shan fell earlier in it, but if he was still there at T and if he's pushing through into the final session, well, it might have been him who went on and scored the triple figure score that they would have needed for a really big day.
He looks good as well. Shan Masood again took it on.
Another start.
Another start and looked stylish. And,
out twice.
True. It was Mitch Marsh exactly the same. Once off the no ball, edge to slip. God, he loves edging one to slip, doesn't he?
Sure does.
Mitchell Marsh picking up that one in there as well. So it was Stark and Hazel with the 2 openers. It was Marsh getting the captain, and then it was Cummins getting 3 through the middle, and then started to work his way through the tail as well. So 3 consecutive 5-wicket hauls for Cummins against Pakistan.
First time since Nathan Lyon for Australia that's happened.
Okay.
And the first time in Test cricket since Pranab Jayasuriya took 2 6-fers on debut, then a 5-fer against, I think it was Pakistan in his second Test match, first innings of his second. So it's pretty rare to go, 3 5-fers in a row if it's been over 6 years for Australia.
So and it'll be one of those hindsight wisdom things, right? If Australia go on and make 520 tomorrow, then this last wicket partnership won't matter too much. But if they go on and get bowled out for 280, then there'll be a bunch of idiots who stuffed it up at the end and couldn't figure it out.
Let's talk about David Warner. Why don't we, at this point, transition into the CBUS Super Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame brought to you by CBUS Super every single day of this series, and indeed this summer, as I awkwardly...
Always. It'll be the whole summer.
Always. We're into the 40th birthday, as we mentioned before, and that is a tribute to the vision of the building and construction workers who chose to forego a pay rise in their pocket at the time to put money into their retirement savings. Their decision to improve outcomes for future generations is the catalyst for our superannuation system in Australia. Embedded standards of living in retirement for those who are members of it.
Think about one thing. We're standing on the 4th floor of a building. Would we be able to do that without construction workers? No. We would be in the sky, and we would be rapidly falling out of the sky. That's the kind of thing that they do.
It's a story of believing big. 40 years ago, now we're into that year, it was the founding members, unions and employers signing on for superannuation for building and construction workers, which launched on the 1st of July 1984. Happy birthday, CBUS. CBUSSuper.com.au. Past performance, not a reliable indicator of future performance. They do great work. Get your super sorted out this year.
This is a hot contender to be the loudest episode of all time. plane was going over us. It's very windy. I don't know how the mics will be holding up. Hopefully it's listenable. The air con units are going absolutely berserk.
We've done louder.
Another thing
we've done podcasts 5 minutes after playing India.
The loudness of the cheer for Warner when he had to come out to face 1 over, that's kind of Hall of Fame worthy. Because initially when that last wicket partnership was about 15-20, I was thinking this is almost in Australia's interest because it's going to rain any minute and it'll mean they don't have to face like 10 minutes before it rains, which you'd probably rather avoid. But in the end, it didn't rain at all. That's Hall of Fame worthy. Sydney, Test cricket, not a drop.
See, part of the seas, the radar had rain hitting both sides of the SCG. It was meant to be that we play through to 6 o'clock uninterrupted.
But in the end, they have to face 1 over. So Warner gets to run off the field at the fall of the wicket, come out to a huge ovation, big hug from Khawaja, who then lets him go out on his own, out to the middle, which was understated and classy as you'd expect from Usman Khawaja. Guard of honour from the Pakistan team. Shah Massoud shakes his hand, pats on the back all round. And then it's one of the things I like about cricket. You can have the moment of respect and then immediately go, all right, let's get this prick out. And they brought Sajid Khan on the off spinner to bowl, which I liked. I mean, it didn't work, but it nearly worked.
Nearly worked.
But I liked the fact that they went, okay, we've got 1 over, let's surprise them, let's get the ball turning away from the left-hander's bat. And he squeezes one down off the toe Warner that pops up and just hops over his middle stump after belting a 4 first ball and then tucking 2 through mid-wicket. So
it kind of levitated over the stump. I mean, the way he hit it onto his boot, if he didn't hit the toe, my sense is if it doesn't hit the toe of his shoe, it's probably bouncing on the turf and hitting middle stump. It just kind of, it was meant to be. It was assisted somehow. The cricket gods had Warner's back for this one, and it just got over the middle stump, right over the top of the bail, so he lives to fight another day, as you say, after the boundary. Some other Warner bits and pieces. We neglected to mention the baggy green stuff yesterday. Sure. I don't know which baggy green he was wearing today. Just a reminder,
2 at one point.
It's not David Warner's first. He's done that a bit, hasn't he, since COVID, wearing the double baggy green.
The double hat.
The Steve Waugh baggy green sandwich. All you need to slouch at in between.
He's often worn the white floppy with the baggy green, with Alex Carey's baggy green on top, but today it was 2 baggy greens.
Oh, right. Okay, so, well, he does have 2 baggy greens, as we've learnt, and I know the story of the second one, I wrote it. So, in Dhaka in 2017, he batted with a hat on in the 4th innings where he made 100, wearing what looked to be a brand spanking new baggy. And we're like, what on earth's going on here? It was the brief time they moved to Kookaburra and away from Albion, so it really stood out. It looked like a skull cap, right? And I saw him in the hotel lobby afterwards going, what doing with the baggy green? And he goes, oh yeah, I lost mine. And here's the story. In 2017, they went from the Champions Trophy straight from the IPL, then on to Bangladesh after that. Lots of flying, planes, trains, automobiles, and all the rest of it. And
Andy was involved.
At the time, Warner was carrying around in his hand luggage, I suppose, a garment bag with the jacket with the number 46 on it, because in case Steve Smith, stepped on a cricket ball before the toss and he had to stand in as captain, they gave the vice captain a blazer ready for the toss. Right. And his baggy green was sat in the bottom of that garment bag. They'd completely forgotten where it was, and his wife Candice found it in that bag during the Dhaka Test match of 2017. Right. Didn't have time to get it to Bangladesh, so he wore the new one. So I assume that's the second one he's referred to. Okay. The first one, of course, sadly missing as well. I hope they get that back. I think that's actually quite a sad thing. I know, there's the fetishisation of the baggy green and so on, but it is a significant thing for a cricketer to have that cap in their retirement and so on.
For all of your career, bar your last test when someone flogged it.
Yeah, so he did have a new one on today, or what looked to be a relatively new one. But yeah, the Warner, I like the guard of honour as well. These teams clearly like each other, and they'll get on with things tomorrow. I've got a few other bits and bobs to get through here as well. Both openers dismissed second ball. Gone through this in a little bit of detail. Adam Morehouse, the great stato from the ACT, helped me with this. So we've had both openers dismissed from their first ball in Test cricket on 4 occasions. The most recent of those was like 2016 in an innings that Marty Gupta was involved in. Mustn't have been against Zimbabwe or Bangladesh. Sorry, Marty. Nice bloke. But in the first innings of a Test match, that's the first time that's happened. The fewest deliveries. Before that, it was 5 balls. Yeah. You weren't there. Oh. I was there. You were not there. 2015 Ashes at Trent Bridge when
I had to go home. Yeah.
Rogers faced 3 and Warner faced 2. So that was the fewest deliveries in the first innings of a match. Right. Today it was 4 to get rid of both openers. What else have I got here? Mitchell Marsh, sort of after keeping his foot behind the line the second time around, thanking everybody and just going around and thanking the crowd for having his back. It's funny how Mitch Marsh and Maxie have gone from being 2 fairly Marmite characters to the 2 most popular cricketers in Australia right now. I've got some other bits and pieces here. I think some of them were good, but I can't read my own notes. Anything else from you? Was he doing push-ups in front of the crowd? It's quite good.
Particularly with the clap. I also like that he made it through about 4 and then he was like, no, I'm tired. And that just got a big ovation down there. It was very, it was raucous in a good way and good fun today, it seemed.
I think that is the Hall of Fame for CBUS Super, and in turn it's the podcast as well. cbussuper.com.au. We come back tomorrow. I hear the forecast isn't the best, but it's also not the worst. So hopefully lots of cricket in. We get to see David Warner have a memorable day, and indeed see Pakistan. It's not honours even, it's Australia's day on the basis that they've taken all 10 wickets, and this is a road out there, or maybe not a road, I'm exaggerating there, but it's not going to present enormous problems for Australia tomorrow, but they've done tremendously well to stay in the Test match with that memorable final wicket stand.
And the last bit in the Hall of Fame is that the final word Jody Hicks correspondent John O'Halen has arrived with Phoebe and their little baby Titch, who's named after Titch Freeman.
Oh, and I should say,
and we're about to meet him for the first time.
We're about to meet Titch, and there are two Sydney-siders over there who are coming to. By the way, they met. The first day they met was on this corresponding day of the Test match 10 years ago, which is quite nice. I just wanted to say our live show in Sydney. Ticket sales going great. They're coming. Why don't you come as well? Michael Bevan on the 7th, day 5 of this match. Links in the show notes. Come along, be part of it at the Comedy Store. Bevo is primed, he's ready to go to tell some stories. These live shows are the most fun that Jeff and I have in all of what we do. So be part of that, even if you're not someone who listens to the podcast regularly. Bring some people on for the first time, and I like to believe they will enjoy a good night. Indeed, 2 people that came for the first time had never heard of us before. They listened back to our Zimbabwe and Scotland episodes. They're so into it now. They're already in the back catalogue. That can be your friends as well.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Final Word Daily. We'll see you on day 2.
Night.